Among history's most remarkable figures, Anastasia Nikolaevna was born on June 18, 1901, in Peterhof Palace near St. Petersburg, Russia. A beloved daughter of the Russian Empire, her name still sparks questions and mystery even today. What really happened to her? Why has her story captured so many hearts for more than a century? Please watch my full video until the end, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Please make sure to share it with your friends. Thank you. Now, let us dive into the full story. Anastasia was the youngest daughter of Emperor Nicholas II and Empress Alexandra. Her father, Nicholas, was the last Tsar of the Russian Empire. At the time of her birth, the Romanov family ruled a vast land that stretched across Europe and Asia. They lived in beautiful palaces, attended grand events, and were treated like living legends. But behind the scenes, dark clouds were already forming around the empire. Anastasia had 3 older sisters, Olga, Tatiana, and Maria, and 1 younger brother, Alexei. From an early age, Anastasia was full of life. She had a bright smile, playful nature, and a curious mind. Her family often described her as clever, quick-witted, and mischievous. While others followed rules, Anastasia made her own. The palace staff found her both amusing and exhausting. She played tricks, made jokes, and never seemed to sit still. Even though she was a princess, she acted like a normal child, chasing her siblings through the halls and giggling at bedtime stories. From the beginning, her unique spirit set her apart in a world where tradition ruled everything. Life in the Russian imperial court was filled with beauty, tradition, and strict rules. For Anastasia Nikolaevna, growing up inside the royal world of palaces meant living in a place that looked like a dream, but often felt like a cage. The Romanovs followed a daily routine that was carefully planned and filled with old customs. Every step, every meal, and every word was part of a well-rehearsed performance, meant to reflect the power and grace of the empire. The family spent much of their time at the Alexander Palace in Tsarskoye Selo. It was peaceful, surrounded by trees and gardens, but it was also heavily guarded. Inside, Anastasia's days included lessons, prayers, and formal meals. Dressed in fine gowns, she attended balls and church services alongside her sisters and parents. While this life may have seemed perfect to outsiders, it was not always joyful for the children. Despite the luxury, Anastasia and her siblings were not spoiled. Their parents believed in raising them with modesty and discipline. They slept on hard beds, washed with cold water, and followed a strict schedule. Still, the sisters shared a strong bond, turning even the dullest moments into laughter-filled games behind closed doors. Servants were everywhere, yet the family valued privacy and closeness. Anastasia often sneaked behind curtains, played hide and seek in long hallways, and shared secrets with her sisters late at night. While the world saw a grand royal family, inside the palace walls lived a spirited girl who wanted to run, laugh, and be free. Anastasia's life in court was a mix of ceremony and playfulness, where duty and childhood danced side by side behind golden doors. Anastasia Nikolaevna shared a deep and special bond with her parents, Emperor Nicholas II and Empress Alexandra. Though they were rulers of a vast empire, at home they were simply Papa and Mama to their children. Nicholas II, known for his calm and gentle nature, adored his family. He was not a strict ruler at home, but rather a loving father who enjoyed spending time with his children, often joining them for walks or playing games on the palace grounds. Anastasia, being the youngest daughter, held a soft spot in her father's heart. She was lively and full of jokes, often bringing laughter into serious rooms. Her playful spirit reminded Nicholas that there was still joy within the troubled world outside their palace gates. She would climb into his lap, tease him with silly faces, and bring warmth to even his most difficult days. Empress Alexandra, however, was a more serious and careful mother. She loved all her children deeply, but her focus was often on her son Alexei, who suffered from a painful illness. This sometimes made Anastasia feel left out, but it did not lessen her love for her mother. When Alexandra was tired or worried, Anastasia would try to cheer her up with her quick wit or gentle hugs. The family often prayed together, read aloud, and spent quiet evenings in each other's company. Anastasia's connection with her parents was not just about royal duty. It was about love, support, and the comfort of being together. Even during the hardest times, she remained a light in their lives, reminding them of laughter and hope when the world around them grew dark. Anastasia Nikolaevna grew up in a family filled with laughter, loyalty, and love. As the youngest daughter of the Romanovs, she shared a deep connection with her siblings Olga, Tatiana, Maria, and Alexei. Together, they called themselves OTMA, a name made by combining the first letters of their names. This bond was more than just playful. It was a symbol of their unbreakable closeness during both joyful and difficult times. Olga, the oldest, was thoughtful and wise beyond her years. Tatiana was graceful and organized, often helping their mother with important tasks. Maria had a gentle heart and loved to care for others. Anastasia, the most mischievous of them all, added laughter to their quiet days. Her quick jokes and silly pranks made even the dullest moments feel exciting. The siblings spent most of their time together. They played board games, took long walks in the palace gardens, and even helped the wounded during war times. They also shared secrets, told stories at night, and supported one another during moments of fear and sadness. Their brother Alexei, the youngest and only boy, had a serious illness, so his sisters, especially Anastasia, watched over him with care and kindness. While their lives seemed full of privilege, they often lived simply inside the palace. They wore modest clothing, did their own chores, and were raised with strong values of humility and compassion. Anastasia's bond with her siblings was one of her life's greatest treasures. Their unity helped them face the challenges ahead, proving that love and loyalty can shine even in the darkest chapters of history. Anastasia Nikolaevna's education was shaped by the values of discipline, modesty, and family tradition. Like her siblings, she did not attend a public school. Instead, she was taught by private tutors inside the palace. Her lessons included reading, writing, languages, history, geography, and religious studies. She also learned how to sew, paint, and play music. Each day followed a set schedule, filled with lessons and study sessions that kept her busy from morning to night. Though Anastasia was not known as the most serious student, she had a quick mind and sharp memory. Her tutors often noted that she could learn fast when something truly interested her. But more than anything, Anastasia was known for her lively and joyful spirit. She was full of jokes and loved to make others laugh. Sometimes, her energy made it hard for her to sit still during long lessons, which often made her teachers smile and sigh at the same time. She enjoyed drawing funny cartoons, acting in family plays, and creating silly rhymes. Her humor brought life to the palace, especially during times of worry. While some saw her as a troublemaker, those closest to her knew she had a kind heart and a clever sense of humor. Anastasia's playful personality was one of her most special traits. She was not afraid to laugh at herself and always found ways to brighten the mood of those around her. Even during hard times, her joyful nature reminded everyone that there was still light in the world, and that laughter, even in small doses, could bring comfort and hope. When World War I broke out in the summer of 1914, life changed quickly for Anastasia Nikolaevna and her family. The Romanovs, once surrounded by peace and luxury, were suddenly living in a world filled with fear, uncertainty, and great responsibility. The war brought sadness, shortages, and pressure to the Russian people, and the royal family felt the weight of their nation's suffering. Nicholas II, Anastasia's father, left the palace to command the army at the front lines. This decision took him far from home, leaving Empress Alexandra to handle state matters and care for their children. Anastasia, along with her sisters, stepped up to help in any way they could. While the older girls, Olga and Tatiana, worked as nurses in military hospitals, Anastasia and Maria were too young to treat the wounded, but still helped by comforting soldiers and preparing medical supplies. The palace became a place of quiet service instead of celebration. Parties and dances were replaced with hospital beds and prayers. The once joyful halls were now filled with the sounds of footsteps and soft voices. Despite the sadness, Anastasia tried to stay cheerful, offering jokes and smiles to anyone who needed them. The war also caused food shortages and protests across the country. Many people blamed the royal family for the hardships, and the once loved Romanovs began to lose public support. Anastasia, just a teenager, was too young to understand the full danger, but even she could feel the change in the air. Her life was no longer just about lessons and laughter. It was now deeply tied to a world in pain. By the early months of 1917, the Russian Empire was in deep trouble. The people were angry about the war, food shortages, and how the country was being ruled. This unrest led to the Russian Revolution, which forced Anastasia's father, Nicholas II, to give up the throne. The Romanovs were no longer the royal family, they became ordinary people overnight. At first, the family was kept at the Alexander Palace. Guards watched them closely, but they were still allowed to stay in familiar rooms and continue their daily routines. Anastasia, always playful, tried to stay positive, but life under watchful eyes was not easy. The family could not go outside freely, and they had to ask permission for even simple things. Soon, things grew worse. The Romanovs were moved to Tobolsk, a cold and distant town in Siberia. There, they lived in a governor's house with fewer comforts and even stricter rules. Anastasia and her siblings brought their humor and games with them, trying to keep their spirits high despite the sadness around them. Later, in the spring of 1918, they were taken to Ekaterinburg. There, their new home was the Ipatiev House, also known as the House of Special Purpose. It was surrounded by guards and tall fences. Windows were painted over to stop them from seeing outside. Anastasia, still only a teenager, could sense the danger growing. Her letters became more serious, and her once playful words were filled with quiet worry. Yet, she remained brave, comforting her younger brother and finding small joys even during house arrest. Behind locked doors, the family waited, not knowing what the future would bring. In the early summer of 1918, Anastasia Nikolaevna and her family were held inside the Ipatiev house in Ekaterinburg. Their new life was cold, silent, and filled with fear. The guards were harsh, and the family's movements were watched closely. The rooms were plain and tightly locked. The windows were painted so they could not see out. Each day felt the same, and the family knew something terrible might happen. But no one spoke it aloud. Anastasia stayed close to her siblings. They played quiet games, read aloud, and prayed together. Despite the sadness, Anastasia still tried to bring laughter to the house. She drew funny cartoons and made silly faces, especially to cheer up her younger brother, Alexei. She held on to hope even when it was hard to find. The Romanovs were told they would be moved again, but they were never told where or when. They packed their bags and waited, but the move never came. Food became more limited, and the guards grew more distant. The family stayed strong together, comforting one another in whispers and silent hugs. Letters from friends and loved ones stopped arriving. News from the outside world was no longer shared. The Romanovs were slowly cut off from everything they had once known. Anastasia began to understand that their lives were in danger, but she faced each day with quiet courage. Though only 17 years old, she showed strength beyond her age. Her final days were not filled with royal glory, but with simple love-shared meals, soft prayers, and the warmth of family in a dark time. On the night of July 16th into the early morning of July 17th, 1918, a terrible moment in history took place. Anastasia Nikolaevna and her entire family were led to the basement of the Ipatiev house in Ekaterinburg. They had been told they were being moved to a safer place. But the truth was far more tragic. The family, along with a few of their loyal servants, stood together in the small, dark room. Nicholas II, Empress Alexandra, their 4 daughters Olga, Tatiana, Maria, and Anastasia, and their young son Alexei, all waited quietly. They were told to stay still while a photograph was taken, but this was only a trick. Suddenly, a group of armed men entered. Without warning or mercy, the family was shot. The room echoed with noise, fear, and confusion. The daughters, including Anastasia, had hidden jewels sewn into their clothes, which caused the bullets to bounce off at first. This led to even more chaos as the attackers struggled to finish their terrible task. Anastasia, still a teenager, is believed to have survived the first wave of gunfire. Some reports suggest she may have still been alive for a few minutes, possibly wounded and confused, but no one survived that night. The Romanov family, once the most powerful in Russia, was gone in an instant. The news of their deaths was kept secret first. Later, the world would learn about the horror of that night. The death of Anastasia and her family marked not just the end of a royal line, but the end of an era. A family once filled with love and laughter was taken by violence, leaving behind only memories and sorrow. After the Romanov family was killed in the summer of 1918, mystery began to grow around Anastasia Nikolaevna. While most people believed she had died with her family, no bodies were shown to the public. For years, no official graves were found. This silence gave rise to rumors that someone, maybe even Anastasia, had survived that tragic night. Soon, stories began to spread. Some said a young girl had escaped the bullets and fled. Others claimed she had been rescued by a kind soldier. The most famous story came from a woman named Anna Anderson. In the 1920s, she appeared in Germany and said she was the real Anastasia. Her story shocked the world. Many people believed her, especially because she knew details about the Romanovs that seemed too exact to be made up. But the Romanov relatives disagreed. They said she was an imposter. For many years, people argued, was Anna Anderson truly the lost Grand Duchess? Books were written, movies were made, and the mystery of Anastasia became a legend. The truth began to come out in the late 1990s. After the Soviet Union fell, scientists were allowed to examine newly discovered graves. Using DNA testing, they confirmed that the entire Romanov family had died in Ekaterinburg, including Anastasia. Anna Anderson was not the missing duchess. She was a Polish factory worker with mental health struggles. Still, the myth lived on. Even though science proved the facts, people were fascinated by the idea of a royal girl who had cheated death. The story of Anastasia's possible survival continues to inspire books, films, and dreams of what might have been. For many years, the fate of Anastasia Nikolaevna and her family remained one of history's deepest mysteries. No official graves had been revealed, and people wondered where the Romanovs were buried. That changed in 1991, when a hidden grave was found near Ekaterinburg, not far from the Ipatiev house. Inside, scientists discovered the remains of several people. Experts believed they had found the Romanovs, but 2 bodies were missing: Alexei and one of the daughters, possibly Anastasia. This led some to still believe she had survived. To find the truth, scientists used a modern method called DNA testing. They compared the bones with living relatives of the Romanovs, including Prince Philip of the United Kingdom. The results confirmed that the grave held the remains of Tsar Nicholas II, Empress Alexandra, and 3 of their daughters. But the mystery continued until 2 more sets of remains were found in 2007, buried in a separate place. After more testing, it was proven that the missing bodies were indeed Alexei and the last daughter, meaning all 7 Romanovs were finally accounted for. The DNA evidence settled the long debate. Anastasia had died with her family on July 17, 1918, and none of the imposters had been real. Scientists, historians, and even the Russian Orthodox Church took part in confirming the findings. In July 2018, a century after their deaths, the Romanovs were honored in a special remembrance. Though the truth was painful, it helped bring peace to a long, unanswered question. The story of Anastasia moved from legend back into history, supported by science, and finally given a proper ending. Anastasia Nikolaevna's story did not end with her death. In fact, her memory has lived on in books, films, plays, and even animated stories. The idea of a young princess lost to history captured the hearts of people around the world. Her short life, filled with laughter and tragedy, became a symbol of innocence lost in times of great change. In the years following the fall of the Soviet Union, the Romanov family was honored once again. In 2000, the Russian Orthodox Church declared Anastasia and her family as passion bearers, people who showed great faith in the face of suffering. They were remembered not just as royals, but as victims of a brutal time in Russia's past. Anastasia became a part of global culture. In 1997, a popular animated movie imagined a story where she had survived and lost her memory. Even though it was fiction, it helped a new generation learn about her name and her family's history. Musicals, novels, and documentaries followed, each telling her story in a different way. Her legacy is not only about being a duchess. It is about family, hope, and the power of memory. People still visit places where she lived and honor her name. Schools, churches, and even charities have been named after her. Today, Anastasia stands as a reminder of a world that once was a world filled with beauty, sadness, and change. Her story teaches us about courage during hard times and how legends can grow from the quiet life of a teenage girl who once loved to laugh, sing, and bring joy to those around her. Thank you very much for watching.